And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the Dawg Talk Podcast. I'm your host, Reno. Alongside me, co-host Dan Kiley, and we have a very special guest, Koby. I think you are the second former Georgia player on the show. You have joined rare company with Aaron Murray. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Koby Pyrz. He is joining us tonight as our special guest on a pre-recorded edition of the Dawg Talk Podcast. Koby, Dan, how we doing this morning, gentlemen? Or afternoon, evening. Holy crap. I am way early.
Yeah, well, we're doing great. Clearly you're rattled. So it's hate week. It's in your head. Hate week.
Thanks for having me on. Glad to join you guys. Excited to get into it. You know, it's hate week. No better week to kind of talk dogs and talk about the nerds over in Atlanta. Glad we got you good and rattled. Got your emotions flowing early. People are going to love it.
Yeah, Kirby said today, you know, he doesn't think there's any benefit in getting emotional as a coach. He wants to keep his composure. I don't know if I'd call his coaching style composed, but I mean, maybe we can talk about that later. Koby, speaking of getting you rattled, we're going to rattle your cage here. We're going with our hot topics, which are usually, as we like to have fun with these. So whether Dan finds something or whether I find something, it doesn't have to be Georgia related. It doesn't even have to be football related, which is kind of that like our first one today. We just bring a hot topic in here and maybe trying to spark a little bit of debate here. There's not much debate, but today there's going to be some debate, I'm sure. So hot topic number one, we'll go with Dan first, and we'll go to Koby, who, like me, I'll let him reveal how he found his answer, and I probably found it the same way. Dan, hot topic number one. I'm going to your favorite shot, the solo shot. Who is the most successful, in your opinion, bad actor or bad actress?
Listen, it was an easy one for me, and you guys Googled him up and said, hey, this guy is number one. I'm like, that is my guy. That's Keanu Reeves. He is very, very successful, and he does have good roles, and he has roles that I really like him in. However, he's not a good actor. It's the same thing as kind of like that stoned out, like just, oh, where am I at kind of attitude. It's like the same voice all the time. But like, he has roles that he's really good in John Wick. He was good in The Matrix. He was good in The Replacements. But he's always kind of the same guy. I mean, he doesn't really have an enormous range, but he is immensely successful. He found a lane, and it's worked for him. It is no disrespect. I mean, the guy is great. And by all means, he is a great human as well. Everybody that's ever come in contact with him, there are so many stories. He will literally give his last penny to somebody on the street if they need it. And he's just a really, really, really good person. So I'm not taking a shot at you, Keanu. I love you, man. He's just not the greatest actor, but immensely successful.
Koby, what do you say?
Yeah, I'm gonna throw you gentlemen for a loop here.
Oh boy.
You know, we're kind of looking. It's going to be an actress, right? Super famous, known for probably one role. Got really famous from that role. Going with Kim Kardashian. You know what I'm saying? Like
everybody loves the comeback story.
That's what I'm saying. Kind of broke the internet there. Had one good acting role. Is super famous. Not sure it was all worth the hype. You know what I'm saying? So that's going to be my answer for the day.
Didn't see that.
Hey, I did not. Koby, was that on the Google list, or how did we come up with that one? Maybe that just came to your head. I don't know.
No, it was on there. It wasn't on the it was like actresses you never think about, and it was like number 18, Kim Kardashian. I was like, what a perfect answer.
I think I've seen only one Kim Kardashian movie, and it was probably that one. I went with a similar source in terms. I just went to Google. I searched up bad actors / actresses, and the first name I saw, which I'll give you my answer here, it's Ben Affleck. Now, I've seen maybe 2 Ben Affleck movies, but the reason I think he's a bad actor is because he replaced Christian Bale as Batman. And you just can't do that. Christian Bale is the greatest Batman of all time, in my opinion. Dan, I know you're the old head here in terms of you've probably seen the original Batman movie, so you may disagree with me on that. I think George Clooney was a great one, so it's neck and neck for me. But I just think Ben Affleck, I can't stand it. I will never watch the Ben Affleck Batman movies because you just ain't going to remake greatness that was Christian Bale. Gentlemen, any of y'all with me on this one?
I'll tell you, though, he makes a damn good accountant. I don't know if you've ever seen that movie.
He makes a great alcoholic basketball coach.
Okay, so
But
maybe mine
I
was
don't-
the worst of the picks.
I don't hate Ben Affleck. I could see where you're going with that. And yes, I did not like him as Batman. But you're right. Christian Bale was incredibly difficult to beat, but Michael Keaton will always be my Batman.
What about
Although I love Christian Bale.
how do you feel about Robert Patterson's Batman?
Oh, please don't even talk to me about that one.
He's below
Oh
below
my God.
Affleck's Batman.
I can't do an emo Batman. I can't do an emo Batman. I just can't. Maybe you can. Maybe
Things are so dark
Oh God,
and mysterious behind the mask.
Mm-hmm. Have you seen The Devil All the Time?
Mm-mm.
It's a Netflix movie. It's fantastic. It's got a million people in it that you know. It's got Tom Holland in it.
Okay.
But Robert Patterson plays a role in that movie, and I can't unsee it. So it's called The Devil All the Time. It is it's a twisted effing movie, but it's so good.
See, this is what happens on the Top of the Talk with Hot Topics. We might go 10 minutes. We might go 15 minutes. Hell, I think we've done 20 minutes on Hot Topics before. Koby, speaking of putting people in a loop, you're going first this time. Next question. What is the one Thanksgiving side you always eat, and who makes it? It could be your favorite side. What is it?
Yeah, my aunt makes a killing sweet potato souffle. I'm always big fan here too, right? The pecan crust, the hard crust, not the marshmallow crust. That'll be probably the hill I die on. Like the souffles with the marshmallow, it's good, it's okay, but like when it has the nice glazed pecan crust, going back for seconds every time.
All right, so there's a lot of them that I like. Obviously, hash brown casserole. I mean, there's a bunch of them. But listen, and I know I'm going to get absolutely butchered for this. My favorite Thanksgiving side is stovetop stuffing. I'm not the dressing inside the turkey, or not a homemade. I want out of a box stovetop stuffing. It's my absolute favorite. My mom makes it specifically for me because nobody else wants to eat it. They call it crap. I love it. I absolutely love it.
So I went in for our viewers or for our listeners who aren't here on video. I went in. Usually I like to do solo shots for this, but I went into the 3-person shot because I wanted to see. I didn't know where Dan was going with that. So like, wait, if he's gonna give us a hot take, I want them to be able to see our reaction. But no, that's not a hot take, Dan. And Koby, I have beef with you now because my answer is the candy sweet potatoes. My grandmother makes the best of them. You have sweet potatoes, I'm there. I just perfect. I'm cool with the regular potatoes, although you're not going to beat the sweet potatoes. Just put some cinnamon sugar on it, put some butter on that thing, and I will eat 6 of them. I don't even need turkey. I can just have sweet potatoes all day long. Close second, though, got to be the stuffing. I don't care if it's oven baked. I don't care how you do it. I love the stuffing. It is underrated. I think green bean casserole is also very underrated. A lot of people my age, Dan, and maybe this doesn't shock y'all, hate green bean casserole.
Frontal lobe hasn't fully developed yet is the problem there. Just give it a couple more years.
Listen, green bean casserole can be butchered very easily. Like you can make it really shitty, or you can make it really good. Like another one too, collard greens. You have somebody who knows how to make collard greens. They are delicious, and you put some of that pepper sauce on them. Oh hell yeah! Well, let me ask you a question. So this is a third one off the cuff, Thanksgiving related. What's your favorite pie, Harrison? You go first.
Pecan. I've had pecan pie, but I have a friend that makes a pecan like cheesecake. Oh my God. Never have I ever been put onto pecans like I have with that. I could do pecan pie any day of the week. I'm sorry, this might be a hot take, but I hate pumpkin pie. Get pumpkin out of here. I don't want it. I don't want to smell it. I don't want to feel the texture of it. Just get it out of here.
Koby?
Yeah, I'm right back in your face here. Give me pumpkin pie.
All right.
I don't know why. Nothing feels like Thanksgiving dessert like pumpkin pie. Like I feel like you have pecan pie all throughout the year, have apple pie all throughout the year, but like pumpkin pie, NFL football on the TV, a little coolness in the air, like that just feels like Thanksgiving. A little bit of whipped cream on the top. It's good stuff. It definitely would be my go-to Thanksgiving dessert.
That's the only time of the year I eat pumpkin pies at Thanksgiving, and it's you get that dollop of Cool Whip right on top. Like I don't like traditional whipped cream. I like Cool Whip. Put it right on top.
I don't judge either way.
Either way.
Colby's like, I don't discriminate. Either one, whatever's available. All right, gentlemen. As much as I love Thanksgiving, and I think we could probably do a show on Thanksgiving.
It's my favorite holiday.
And movies. Although Dan's already done a podcast on movies, you can go find that if you want to go find it. It has sadly been discontinued, much to Dan's chagrin. But we're here for Talk Football. That's why we were at Colby on. In full transparency, Dan came to me a few weeks ago and said, hey, we need to get Colby on. I said, okay, let's start thinking what we want when he comes on. I wanted you post Ole Miss because I wanted to get a player's take on what that building was like coming off a loss heading into the Tennessee game. But we had to settle for here, which is fine. It works. We saw last week, we saw Tennessee, and we saw UMass. So we're going to open with that. Colby, if you want to give us your, I guess, prediction or just give us your thoughts on kind of the mood in that building heading into, as you described it, Hate Week.
Yeah, the mood's back. Anytime I feel like, especially college age kids, it's kind of on a bell curve. We've talked about it before. You were super high on Tennessee, and anytime you're that emotional, and you were probably that high and emotional going to Ole Miss too. So anytime you've ridden two really high highs like that, and then one of them especially being a loss, I knew you were bound to have a little bit of not a lackluster performance against UMass, but I mean, I could have told you we were going to come out pretty flat. And flat is just like not wanting to tackle, not wanting to strike blocks, not wanting to shed blocks. That first drive that UMass has where they go 75 yards, 9 runs, 1 pass. That's what I mean by flat. The rest of the game it kind of settled itself out in the end, but a lot of people forget we're paying these guys hundreds of thousands of dollars to play football now, but I mean, they're still 18 to 22 years old. They know when they walk out on a field like that, we are so superior to UMass at every position on the field that at some point you don't have to come with your A game and win. And I think Kirby said it best in the post game. We didn't show up like we wanted to play today, and it showed in some parts of the game plan.
And, one of the things that I always talk about with teams is like every once in a while there's those special teams and then there's just your normal teams. And what Kobe's talking about is that's the normal team, right? That's the normal ebb and flow of a season. Every so often you'll find a team, whether it be basketball, football, baseball, it doesn't matter what it is. It's just you find a team every so often where it doesn't matter who the opponent is. They just want to beat the absolute shit out of whoever is on the other side. And you see it a lot of times in basketball. You'll see these teams like UNLV back in the day. I know it's a long time ago, but like it didn't matter who the opponent was. If they had the opportunity to beat you by 200 points, they were going to do it. And they just thrive on it. You see it a lot of times in high school where they just absolutely love to kick the dog mess out of the teams that are not very good. Now, you don't necessarily see that too much in college anymore because, like you said, but every so often you find that team. And unfortunately, we don't have that team. Honestly, I don't think there is a team in college football that's like that right now, where they play their best regardless. And like I said, those teams are special and rare. And a couple of years ago, Georgia had one of those teams where it didn't matter who the opponent was. We would hit you in the mouth. I guess it was 2 years ago or 3 years. But you know what I'm saying? Those teams are rare. They don't come along. So I think Kobe hit the nail on the head. It's the ebb and flow. You have 2 really emotional weeks back to back. You knew something was going to happen. And I mean, we talked about on our pre-show, Harrison, the win was inevitable. I mean, like something miraculous would have had to happen for Georgia to lose that game. But you're right; they just the emotion wasn't there.
You still scored 59 points.
Yeah, I know, right?
and one of their touchdowns is a 75-yard busted coverage on your safeties. I mean, it's not like they had their way with you all night. They had a good first quarter, good first quarter and a half where they ran the ball super effectively, and then a blown coverage gives up 21. Otherwise, it's 59-14. Like Crimea River, we gave up 14. You won't see me shaking that happened on Saturday.
I do want to talk about this because I think a lot of the takeaways after this game will be about the defense, and rightfully so. Georgia gave up 29 or 21 points. UMass had a really good first half, kept it. I think they were down 17, or they were down 7 at halftime, if I remember correctly. They were down 21-14. Or yeah, I think it was that. Maybe
28-14
at halftime. And as has become the case in recent years, anytime Georgia's in a close game with a team they're 40-point favorites on, or heck, even that 40-point underdog scores the first touchdown, there's going to be screenshots out the yin yang talking about, is there upset alert, upset alert, upset alert. There's even a guy in my mentions came in there and said, oh man, y'all really struggle with UMass. I'm like, did you just look at the halftime score, or did you look at the final score? Because the final score was very different in terms of what it showed. But getting back to my point here, the offense handled their business. They handled their business. Only one drive that they didn't score on. That was a turnover on downs. Dan, you came into the game saying, like you said, the win's inevitable. So what do we want to see out of the offense? And somehow, some way, we both got what we wanted. The passing game was there. It was consistent. It looked explosive. And then the running game. Your guy, Nate Frazier, had the game we kind of been waiting on.
Yeah, and I said that if he didn't have that game, we had big problems on our hands, because a guy as talented as that, with the offensive line as talented as Georgia, with the threats of throwing the ball, like that, he should have been able to run for days, and he did, and he was consistent, and he ran. I believe he was even getting carries in the fourth quarter, if I'm not mistaken. But he had a good day, and we needed to see him have a good day, and I was really excited to see that. And you're 100% right. You can absolutely not throw darts at this offense. The offense showed up, and they played from open whistle to closing whistle. I was going to ask you guys something. Could you tell a noticeable difference when the twos got in? I felt like the energy went up as opposed to down when the twos got in.
Yeah, I think that, like you're saying, anytime the twos get a chance to play in a game like this, it's been a hard year. People talk about, it's been a hard year as a fan with the games we played. It's been kind of a hard year as a player, as a backup, as a scout team player. Not a lot of home games, a long time before home games, not a lot of easy games, not a lot of games that you're getting in there as a 2, as a 3, as a walk-on, as somebody that's given a lot of time and effort to this program. It is fun to play Clemson, but you play them at a neutral site, not everybody gets to go. You go play Florida at a neutral site, not everybody gets to go. You're playing all these big away games. You're only taking 75 guys. I think 70 or 75 guys make travel roster every Saturday. You're leaving half your team in Athens to hang out and watch it on the TV. So, yeah, it kind of sucks when it's been that long without having like a big home game. That's why I was glad Tennessee was the way it was. Fans were there, blackout, a lot of energy. That's a reward to guys that have really been practicing hard. And then just to kind of touch back on Nate Frazier, it has been worrisome, I think, this year, because I think we kind of looked into it one time, Dan, kind of laughing of like, is this offense as bad as the 2019 offense? And then we pulled it up and it's like, oh, DeAndre Swift ran for almost 1,400 yards and double-digit touchdowns. Maybe 2019 is not as bad as we all remember. We've definitely had a lot more trouble running the ball this year than we have under Kirby. I think a lot of it has had to do with the offensive line roulette we've had. We've talked about it too, that this late in the year to see 6, 7, 8 guys in the rotation has been a little worrying and confusing. I'm really happy to see that Freeling has kind of moved into that slot at left tackle. And I feel like we really have our 5 guys down going forward for the rest of the year. I'll be really shocked to see if that changes at all. I would say, barring injury, it's going to be these 5 till the end.
I like that point you made there about the front 5, because they've been the hot button topic when aside from Carson Beck, when it comes to the offenses. Hey, does Georgia have Does Georgia know their best 5? And they haven't. I don't know if they've had enough games to even say, hey, here's our front 5. Here's our best 5. But right now, with the way they played against Tennessee, and like we said, they handled business versus UMass, I think your best 5 as of right now of who's healthy is Freeling, Fairchild, Wilson, Ratledge, and Truss. Now, when Ernest gets healthy and he comes back, we'll see what happens. But Monroe Freeling deserves a lot of credit. Played really well versus Tennessee. I saw PFF had him as their highest graded tackle for this past weekend. Granted, he was playing guys that were much smaller than him, and he was expected to dominate, and he did. I really like that point there. And I wanted to ask this to the both of y'all in terms of, I guess, looking kind of ahead without moving on. What if anything do y'all want to take away from this game? If you only have one takeaway, what are y'all taking away from this game? Which is hard. I know it's pretty much a non-question because it is UMass. But if there's one thing, what is it?
The one thing that I would say, my takeaway is that it was a situation where Beck could have easily had an easy game, right, and played well. But he really hasn't. I don't even really know how to word this. I'm glad that Carson Beck played well when he was supposed to play well. And that was my takeaway, is that he didn't struggle at all. It was just easy peasy, 1, 2, 3 easy. And it was so nice to see it. We expect that out of him, and we got it out of him. And I don't know if I'm saying this right. So if you guys understand what I'm saying and can word it better, please do. But I needed Carson to have an easy day, and he did.
Yeah, I think like you're saying with Carson, it's so easy to show up after having a big game last week, probably the game of his career, almost arguably last week, right? And coming to UMass and be a little loose with the ball, be a little loose with where he's throwing the ball, what windows he's trying to fit into. I think that's been kind of a product of how his 2 years have gone and how this year has gone for him. I think he sees that it takes him being focused, laser focused, to have really productive outings. When he's not laser focused, when he's putting too much on himself, he is where he really gets into trouble. He trusts his arm a little too much. He trusts his windows a little too much. I think that, he made safe, accurate throws, and he only pushed the ball into some slots when he had to, and they were the right decision most of the time. Only thing I'll circle back on Monroe Freeling, just talking about, him being the left tackle, right, with Ernest being out. I think when I think back to how did some of the more notable guys get into positions and keep those positions in my career, it is due to the injuries of others. And then once you've had that opportunity, you haven't really let that go. I think that will be, definitely kind of interesting to see if the left tackle position turns into that, think of obviously this is the cliche one, but like a Fromm Eason situation. Like, yeah, maybe we didn't think you were the better left tackle, but now that you're getting to play left tackle all the time, you're playing so much better. I cannot physically take you out.
So this is a question, and you may not be able to give me a real answer, but I want to know your thoughts, okay? Because we don't know if they would even do this, but I've heard a lot of negative stuff about trust through the years, through the year, whatever, and people have been a little frustrated. And Green came into the season, a lot of people thinking that he might end up being one of the best tackles Georgia's ever had, even though he didn't have the size that the other guys had. Would you even consider trying to let Green play right tackle when he comes back? Is that something you can do this late in the season, or is it so foreign left or right? Because, I know in high school, guys flip-flop sides all the time. It's not a big deal. And I know that they start to specialize when you get into college. Is that something you would even consider? Would Georgia consider it? Would you even try it?
I would say no right now. I would say the fact that I've never seen him play any position besides left tackle, like not even as a twos right tackle, not even as like a backup guard. Like I've seen him at left tackle and left tackle only. I don't think that you make quite that big of an adjustment. I think if anything, you probably bring him back in at left tackle and bump Monroe back over to right just because he's been playing it. at this point in the season. Now, if he stays and we're kind of reshuffling the line next year, maybe you bump him inside and you give yourself a true strong side of the line again. I think I would be very interested to see what he would look like at left tackle with Monroe at him at left guard with Monroe at left tackle. I think that would be an interesting little pairing next year.
I think it gets, in terms of the offensive line, it gets really interesting because there are, I think you can come up with maybe 3 or 4 different rotations with this line because you have guys that can play tackle and guard. They can play inside and out. You have guys that can play left and right. Like Truss has played left tackle before, although you probably don't want him over there. I think he's best at right tackle. But he can also play both sides at guard. I mean, look at Ratledge. Ratledge can play both sides. I think Ratledge even flipped with Fairchild in one play. I think it was in the UMass game. Fairchild can play both guard spots. Ernest can play left tackle, and like y'all said, he might be able to flip the right tackle next year if he comes back. And then Monroe Freeling's play both sides of the tackle spots. I mean, there's a lot of combinations there. Not to mention you have a guy when healthy like Michael Morris who can also fit in at either of the guard spots. So it is kind of in some ways an embarrassment of riches. Like, hey, Georgia's talented guys who together on the field can be successful. They can be successful individually, but I think that's been the and Drew Bubba. Thank you, Koby, and the chat with that one. But that's been the issue. It's like individually, you've had guys standing out like a Monroe Freeling in some weeks, but as a unit, those guys, just something's been missing as a unit. And I think starting from Tennessee now, there may be, and actually this was a great segue into our Georgia Tech preview. Georgia could be rounding into form offensively 10 games into the season, which I didn't think was going to be possible. Koby, I told Dan in the audience heading into the Ole Miss game, or after the Ole Miss game, I said, Georgia's offense is who they show us they are. And that was just kind of an inconsistent unit, one that, could have good pass protection one day, may be able to run the ball all right one day, or they could throw for 400 yards, win a game with 4 touchdowns, and that be that. Or they could win a game with their quarterback throwing 3 interceptions. The inconsistency was what I was saying. Hey, they are who they showed us they are. It's not going to change. Well, Tennessee that game might prove us different. It might be a different conversation now going forward in terms of could this unit turn into, I think the comparison I used was the Chiefs last year. They were inconsistent to start the year, and it wasn't until the end. It wasn't until the playoffs where they really got rolling. Is that something that we think Georgia could, I guess, do here in college football? Either of you.
Yeah, I'll start it. Dan, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
I think that, Georgia in college football, especially now with the 12-team playoff, it's a big reason why. I don't know if we're going to talk about that later in the show. I'll save it. But it's all about when you get hot at the right time. You know what I mean? Like, you don't want to be playing your best ball week 3, 4, and 5. You want to save a little bit of that till the end. You want to be playing your best ball right now, really getting into a good rhythm. I think that'll be a really fun test against Georgia Tech, who I don't think is that great defensively, but is good offensively. It'll be a good way to show, like, is our defense kind of tuned up? In our offense, are we scoring when the defense is giving you good opportunities, good matchups, stuff like that? I think the hard thing about Georgia is we know we're so talented. There's so much hype going into the year about, Carson Beck. He's the frame, he's the arm, he's a lot of things that maybe Stetson wasn't. And then kind of towards the middle of the year, it's like we kind of got lost. We weren't scheming people open well. Drops, Lord, we could do a whole show on drops. But, I think that if we get that really cleaned up the next 2 weeks, you're looking at being the number 2 overall seed. Having lost 2 games, one of them, in Tuscaloosa, I still will stand by you should not have lost. But, you're getting people's best shot. I think this year more than any year that I can remember, you've gotten people's best shots when you've gone to them. I fully believe Ole Miss spent this whole offseason preparing for you. They took it to you, and then they got down to Gainesville, and they were like, season's over, gentlemen. We beat Georgia. What else were we supposed to do again?
Yeah. Yeah, I 100% believe in getting hot at the right time. Basketball is the ultimate getting hot at the right time. You see a team go on an absolute tear through the tournament that has no business winning games that they're winning. I mean, Butler, for God's sakes, played in a national championship game. Just wrap your brain around that. I think Wichita State played in this national championship game. That should never happen, but it does. But you're right. Georgia's kind of getting right, but I want to touch on something that Koby said, that you have an offensive coordinator in Buster Faulkner who can 100% challenge you. However, he doesn't necessarily have the weapons to beat you. Although, I mean, listen, you can any given Sunday or any given Saturday, you can lose a football game. We know that, and we're not foolish. But it's a really good test for the Georgia defense because you have a coordinator who's going to stress you and test you. But you're probably going to survive because they don't necessarily have the talent to where you can't defend it. So it's going to, it's just like my take. It's just that I think it's going to be a really good test to get you ready to go because I think he's really going to throw some things at you. To your point about going on the road and taking people's best shots. Dude, if you don't think Georgia Tech has this freaking game scheduled, I mean, they could have went 0-10 or 0-11 coming into this game. If they beat Georgia, I mean, they probably give Brent Key a raise. It's a really important game. Like you said, defensively, they're not very good. We should be able to score. But, hell, you might have a high-scoring game. I don't know. But I'm excited to see it because I really think Buster Faulkner is going to throw the kitchen sink at Georgia, and I want to see how they defend it.
I think circling back to one thing, I completely agree with the Faulkner throwing the kitchen sink. I think that, we've teased that it could be a job interview of sorts for Buster Faulkner in the future, whether that be in red and black or whether that be in somewhere bigger. It's always nice to see what you can do against a Kirby Smart, Glenn Schumann type defense. That impresses. As far as like getting hot, I think another big point right now is I'd love to hear from both of y'all what player you think is getting hot at the right time right now. I think there are some young guys in the middle linebacker room that are getting hot right now that kind of like last year with CJ Allen about the same time. It's like light bulbs are turning on in the middle linebacker room. And I think it's going to be hard to keep some of those kids off the field because to me, no one has played well enough in that room that I'm like, here you go. You're our starting middle linebacker. Take care of us. I think it's wide open week to week. If you're hot, I want to see you playing back there. I want to see you striking blocks. I want to see you making tackles. I'd love to hear y'all's thoughts about maybe a player or a position. Chris Cole. Chris Cole, 100%.
Okay. Dan, I want to show – I think me and you can show Koby our chemistry right here. I'm going to say my name. And if I think it's going to be the same position, he's going to play the same position as the guy you're about to name. I'm going, just for the brand here, Hunter Yurosek. I am going to guess you're going Oscar Delp. Am I wrong?
The player getting hot at the right time?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Delp. I mean, because this is a guy that we kind of bagged on. I mean, it's not just us, or it wasn't necessarily us, but across the nation. People expected Delp to be the next one in line, and then Lawson Lucky kind of stepped up. Koby, we talked about this on the other show, that Lawson Lucky was kind of taking the reins of that room. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Delp is just man on fire. And he's making really big catches. He's making good blocks. He's finding the end zone, running after catches, a lot of different things. Delp is 100% high on my list, but I was also going to say Arian Smith is starting. No, I take that back. That I wanted to kill him after that drop. I take that back. Never mind. Forget that. Okay, Dom Lovett is also really starting to heat up. He's been consistent for sure, but ever since he made that catch on that guy's back in the Tennessee game, it's just like his confidence has kind of gone through the roof. So Delp for sure, I think, is probably one of the most noticeable offensive players that has really heated up. But also Dom Lovett is actually becoming more and more every day that go-to wide receiver we thought he was going to be from day one.
And to piggyback off that real quick, because I said Jurasic, I think tight end room in general, at least the veterans are a good answer here. Both Jurasic and Delp are starting to have the effect that we thought they were coming into the season. Georgia's starting to get them involved more in the offense. I don't know where these easy, quick hitters to the tight ends went. That was kind of our question week to week early in the year is, hey, why aren't we hitting these guys like they're Jurasic on the play action, hitting them on a little arrow route, or in the RPO game, hitting Delp on a little arrow route? The stuff that you would throw to Brock and he'd go pick up 10 yards. And when you can't run the ball like Georgia hasn't been able to this year, a 5-yard reception on a play like that is, God, if you haven't heard this before, I don't know where you've been. An extension of the run game. I don't know where those have been. But now that they've been added into the playbook and they're being ran and hit consistently, they're big hitters. Oscar Delp had a Brock-esque play in terms of he totally just threw that guy down to the ground, didn't let him ankle snatch him, and found his way into the end zone on that RPO play. I think tight ends are a good answer. Don Blovett's a good answer. He's a guy that's getting involved more in the offense. Koby, I see you're going to jump in here.
Yeah, I just think that for me, I'm with you. Where did those go? Where did we think that those weren't available week 3, week 4?
Right.
I know that some of the guys were having some issues with some catches, some blocking, some confidence. I don't always believe that that's when you go cold. I think that another big thing that is a bit of a knock on Bobo in a way, that you see somebody like a Josh Heupel, Lane Kiffin, somebody more like that. If a play works, they continue to run it until you stop it. Like sometimes I think one of the more frustrating things in the offense has been you run a play the past 2 years, you run a play, it looks really good, it works really good. I understand that after you've run it once, then obviously they're going to see some scheme and stuff. But I think that you could run it a couple of times, like a pass to the tight end on arrow route, 4 or 5 times a game for those 5 yards until they stop it. If all of a sudden they're jumping the route, I get it. You put it back and you go, maybe next week, fellas. But it is an extension of the run game. And with a guy like Oscar Delp, a guy like, Lawson Lucky on a middle linebacker, you just never know when he makes that one guy miss or breaks that one tackle and all of a sudden it's a gain of 25. Kind of like how we've been doing it the past 3 or 4 years,
The one play,
Go ahead.
I was going to say, the one play that I really miss, and maybe I'm wrong. Right? Correct me if I'm wrong, and I will stand down. But the wheel route with the running back out of the backfield down the sideline, like we haven't even thrown that, not even one time this year, have we?
Florida, they threw it to Cash, and it was, I think, just a tad bit overthrown.
Yeah, but like you're saying, that was a James Cook, Kenny McIntosh staple.
Yes,
staple.
And I will add in here because I do have an interesting tidbit on this. Over at UGAsports.com, we wrote up a piece on Jamarian Morrow, a 4-star running back that's committed to Mizzou currently. In his interview that we wrote up, he said to us that Georgia told him, hey, we don't have a guy like you. Talking about a pure receiving back, a threat out of the backfield. That's Cash right now for them. And, they're, at least from what the quote was, they're kind of putting him in that James Cook mold of an athlete, of a guy that can be there for all 3 downs, a guy that can go out there and they can trust as a receiver. That's been kind of missing in Georgia's game so far. Is Cash Jones been their most dependent receiver out of the backfield? ETN was that versus Texas, and we haven't seen much of him since then just because of injuries. But I do think there are certain, things that we thought we knew would work are coming back into the offense. Dan, I see you right here.
Is there anybody on this Georgia team that has the right to double barrel Johnny Estrada, the entire fan base, more than Cash Jones? I mean, so many people were talking crap about him before the season and who's Cash Jones? Dude, that guy, he was part of the offense last year. With Kenny McIntosh and with Kendall Milton, he was still getting carries. And the argument that I was making was, at the time, at the beginning of the season, when people were talking trash about Cash Jones, is he was getting critical moment carries against big teams with the game on the line last year. what made you think he wasn't going to be part of the offense this year? I don't know. I guess it's the white running back thing.
I think, Dan, my bad. Go ahead, Koby.
I was going to say, to quote the head coach, right, there's a lot more to playing a position than what you do with the ball in your hands. I think that's how he's taken the approach to receiver, the approach to tight end, same way with running backs. It's a lot about what you do when you're not carrying the ball. It's a lot about how good are you in pass pro? How good are you in faking that? If we're doing play action, are you faking your run hard? Are you making somebody bite? Are you taking a defender with you? Are you giving us a chance? I think Cash has been a guy that he does the little things right. He does it right in practice. And when he gets into games, it's not like he doesn't make big plays in big situations. I mean, he makes big blocks. He's caught the ball extremely well. We've talked about it on our show. I'm like, put the man in the slot. When we were having drop issues, put him out at receiver and throw him little quick outs, throw him little quick screens. If he can catch it, it's what we needed to kind of get a jump start. And I think that, like you're saying, to say that, oh, well, he wasn't a 5-star running back, oh, he doesn't fit the mold of what some people think is a great running back, doesn't mean that he is not serviceable, doesn't mean that he wouldn't be an All-American somewhere else, at a level below, even at like a Mountain West place.
Koby, I wanted to touch on this, and y'all brought this up because y'all talked about good coordinators, running the same thing that works and all that. I think this is a perfect kind of point in segueing into Buster Faulkner. When you watch the Georgia Tech offense, it's what they're going to do. They're going to run multiple different variations of. I was watching today. They were running quarterback counter with the same jet sweep, toss, fake. They were going to run it counter with Haynes King running with the guards. They're going to run it with Haynes King not running with the guards. He's going to run it opposite. They're going to do that. They're going to have RPOs where they have the fake jet and they're going to fake the give to they're going to fake it to him. Haynes is going to leak out to the edge and then he's going to hit the tight end on the arrow route. And they're going to run that several times. And they did it last year a little bit. When they found something that worked, they ran it until Georgia stopped it. And I think that's what makes this offense difficult to stop for Georgia is Buster Faulkner knows better than anyone on that staff kind of what it takes, what gives Georgia fits. He's been in the building. He was there for years. He worked with Monk, and he knows how to give that defense fits. And it's not so much that Georgia Tech has the personnel to beat Georgia one-on-one, because I don't think they do, although that gap has shrunk over the last few years with Brent Key there. But they can scheme with, they're going to scheme up some winners, and it's going to be whether or not they hit those that kind of determine how competitive Georgia Tech makes this football game come Friday. I think I said Saturday. I'm sorry. The game's on Friday.
Well, I'll tell you this right now. Haynes King is a very good quarterback. I don't think there's anybody on the show that would disagree with that. Haynes King is a very good quarterback. He's not healthy. If Buster Faulkner were to stay at Georgia Tech for the next 2 years, Aaron Philo and Buster Faulkner together for 3 years would be scary as shit. I mean, you can roll your eyes if you want to. I'm not saying you guys would, but if you're listening and you don't think that's the real thing, Aaron Philo is the real deal. Like, I've seen that kid play a handful of times. He's extremely well coached, fundamentally sound, big arm, smart, athletic enough to make the plays you need him to make. And right now, that's the biggest misconception for me with a quarterback play is I don't need you to be a freak athlete, but I do need you to be able to make the plays you got to make. Create extra time. Pick up a first down with your legs. That touchdown run that he had this past weekend was a great example of that. It was like a 30-yard touchdown run. He went right up the middle and made a guy miss, and then they kind of thought he was going to slide, and he's like, hell no, I'm not. I'm going to score this touchdown. Well, I think if Buster's able to stay and he's with Aaron Philo 2 years from now, I think Georgia's going to actually really have to play to win that game.
Yeah, I think that I've thought this for a long time. What Paul Johnson did to Georgia Tech for so long is hold them back in terms of recruiting, hold them back in terms of playing in the 21st century. Yes, his offense made it difficult to defend. Yes, it made it where they won some games maybe they shouldn't have. But I think Paul Johnson didn't believe in Georgia Tech. I think that they go off and they hire Collins. yeah, I don't even know if we want to talk about that. But
Waffle
now
House is the only thing I remember about Collins.
I remember him standing on his tippy toes for all the recruiting photos. That's all I remember from him. But I think they have their guy. I think that there's a chance to awaken a really solid football program in Atlanta just based off of recruiting guys from the state of Georgia. I mean, you look at the years that the classes that just the state has. If you take the guys that we don't get and you get those guys, you can build a really, really competitive roster. Auburn's done it for years. They've poached guys out of the state. Florida State's done it for years. They've poached guys out of the state. Florida's done it for years. Clemson, Tennessee. You know, like you're saying, if you're able as Georgia Tech to lock the state down with Georgia, you're going to keep home a lot of talent. And now with NIL and the way the portal goes, you can sit there and you can grab maybe one or two guys that you need to kind of finish a roster up, and you can go and be competitive in a really lackluster ACC. I mean, as early, I think, as next year, Georgia Tech could be competitive.
Yeah, I like the point there. If you have the scheme and you have the players, you can be successful. They don't. They have the scheme now on offense, I think, to be successful. Buster Faulkner is one of the up and coming names to know as an offense coordinator, offensive mind. He's been with Tom Monken for years. He's been there. He's done that. He's learned from Kirby now. He's been on staff there. I really do like what he does there. And I think there's a lot of Georgia fans that would like to see him come back to Georgia at the OC in the future. So, and they have that right now. They don't have the talent, I don't think, man for man to match up with Georgia. And at least they shouldn't be able to and pull the upset. But in the next few years, like Koby said, I think they have their guy. Brent Key has made this rivalry fun again. I love the animosity. He is very public about his hatred for Georgia, which kind of harkens me back to Dan Mullen. He's not as much of a trash talker as Dan Mullen was, or as even Steve Spurrier was. He's not there yet, and I don't think he'll ever get there. But he embodies everything that is this rivalry. It's clean, old-fashioned, hate. And with that, let's segue into this. Gentlemen, before we move on to the Pick'em challenge for our guy Dan Kiley, who's going to be competing this week with Koby in picks. I need
Ask Dan how that's been going for him.
Oh boy. I need one key for Georgia to win, and I need your prediction. You don't have to give me a score prediction, but Georgia is a 20-point favorite as of right now, according to ESPN. Dan, I'll let you go first.
Very, very simply, the offense has to continue to ascend, get better, keep getting better every single week. I really feel like, and I said it last week or the week before, I really felt like Carson Beck has to make his legs part of his game. It's not something that we want to see anymore. It's something that we have to see. And I really think it's important for this offense to become as good as they could possibly be. This Carson Beck has to use his legs in this offense more than he. And I don't know if it's the reluctance is he didn't want to get hurt because he knows he has an NFL future waiting, or he just doesn't like to run. I don't know what the reluctance to run was, because when we see him run, it looks natural. Like, it doesn't look forced. And this offense is so much better when you have to account for the quarterback moving. There was some games earlier in the season where we just didn't feel that. But I need to see Carson just continue to own that role of the leader and just operate smoothly and effortlessly. And if that happens, I have no questions about the offense. Defense, I don't know what to expect right now. Hopefully Koby can talk me off a ledge on this defense, because I have not been happy since the Texas game.
Yeah, key to the game. Great segue. You didn't even know that I was going to talk defense here, but I think that, like we've talked about with Faulkner, like we've talked about with any good offensive coordinator, they're going to try to find something and get into a groove that works. They're going to try to, get you in a bad personnel where they have, a tight end on Chaz Chambliss, a tight end on Damon Wilson. They're going to try to get into positive matchups that they can exploit over and over and over again. And I think at this point, it's going to be eye discipline. It's going to be doing your job. If your job is to, go and blow up the guard, pulling on quarterback, counter, you've got to go. You've got to disrupt that guard. You've got to try to get him on the ground. And And then as far as like you're saying, the jet motions, if your job is in man coverage is to run with the jet guy, you've got to go every single time, because the one time you don't is the time they're going to hand that jet motion off for a 40-yard touchdown. I think that's the thing about this defense is still sometimes we just put ourselves in bad positions and don't give ourselves a chance to make plays that maybe should be a routine play, whether that be a missed tackle, whether that be, not getting off that block. I think that this week, especially going forward into the playoffs, going forward in an SEC championship game, you have to do the little things right to be competitive in big games. I think you did it against Texas. You did it in the second half against Alabama. I need to see that one more time to really feel good about going into the postseason with a defense that I think we can build a championship around.
I like both the points here, and I'm going to stick. I think I'm going to add on to Kobe's here real quick. I want to see Georgia do what they've done in the past when it comes to playing a team that you might say is a little bit more one-dimensional. Take away the damn run game. Make them throw the football to beat you. That's what they have to do. This is the kind of game, I think the game plan here for Georgia Tech is not going to be very different from UMass. They're going to try and limit Georgia to just one first quarter possession. That's the type of game they want. So let's take it away. Let's make them one-dimensional. Let's make them have to throw to win. It's kind of like what they did against Texas. Texas had, I think, under 30 yards rushing. They were a pure passing team. They made them one-dimensional, and it paid off for Georgia because they had 7 sacks against what we were told was the best offensive line in the country. Georgia, make them one-dimensional. Do what you've done in the past when dominant teams, and like Dan and Kobe have said, live up to the expectations. I haven't seen Georgia live up to expectations 3 games in a row this year. They have a chance to do it, and I think it would make a lot of us, all of us, really, really feel good about where this team's at heading in to what will be a 1-game season from here on out. Now, gentlemen, I'm going to pick 4 games. I'm going to give y'all 4 games. Blind draft style. You don't know which games are coming. I'm going to give you the game, where it's at if y'all need it, and I'll give you the line. You don't really have to pick. We don't do spread stuff. If you just want to give us the winner outright, we'll just say money line for all the picks. That works. But since I did the research this week, and I know I had like 3 straight weeks where I told Dan, I'm sorry, I don't have the records. I finally have your record, Dan. Dan, overall this season, you are 8-6 when picking these games.
You'll
and I have a
why.
list
He picks
of
random ass games.
That's
I
okay.
do have
That's okay.
I do have the list. I do have a list of all the picks, all the hits, all the misses. Dan, you were 2-2 last week. You missed on BYU and Ole Miss, which Ole Miss was the big upset. Arizona State, I guess, maybe wasn't that big of a surprise, but you hit on the easiest one of all time, Notre Dame over Army, and you hit, I'll give you credit here, Georgia Tech over NC State. So, gentlemen, to start this week off, Dan, do you want to let Kobe go first here, and then you go first the next game? Okay. Kobe, you've won the toss, and you've elected to receive. So first off, we're starting at First Bank Stadium in Nashville, Tennessee. Tennessee at Vanderbilt. Tennessee's playing for a playoff spot here. They are a 10.5-point favorite. Kobe, who are you picking here?
Yeah, it's going to be Tennessee this week. I think that their letdown game against us, they're going to really come out and run the ball hard against Vanderbilt. And I think that's something that a lot of teams that have lost or struggled have not done. They're going to control the game. They're going to try to run the ball for 200 plus on them, throw the ball only when necessary. So the Vols get it done in Tennessee this week.
I have no wrinkles to add. I think that Sampson is a really, really good running back, and I think you're going to see him get the ball probably 25 times, 25, 30 times this week, and they're going to run it right down their throat. And then they'll probably hit a nice little play action over the top from Nico for an easy touchdown at some point. I don't think this game is going to be challenging for Tennessee, and I think that I will make a bold prediction that they are in a situation where they need to impress somebody, and they're going to try to put an ugly number up on Vanderbilt.
That's Josh Heupel's MO. I would, if there was a line for that, I would take that line. Guys, this is probably the best weeks in terms of games to pick. So I'm going to go straight to, actually, let's go to the next noon game. South Carolina at Clemson. Clemson's a 2.5-point favorite. Both teams fighting for fringe playoff spots. Dan, Kobe got the first one, so you're going first here.
Listen, this one's tough. I have gone back and forth. We have to pick this game for this weekend, and I don't know which one Kobe picked. I haven't seen his picks yet. Well, I'm sure he's put them in there. I just haven't looked. I picked Clemson because I think the game's at Clemson, right?
Yes.
Yeah, then that's pretty much the only reason. That's the only logic I have behind it. If I'm just saying straight up pick them, I got Clemson, and I really can't tell you why.
Yeah, I've been torn. I haven't put my picks in for our week either yet. So I think I'm gonna have to lean. Gosh, I just don't know. I think that Clemson's kind of like we are in that same boat of you play Clemson at Clemson. It is just so hard to get it done. I mean, obviously South Carolina got it done 2 years ago, but I mean, I think that was the first time in like 6 or 7 years that Clemson had lost at home. I think that the offensive line can stand up enough to allow them to win this game. I haven't really seen a lot that tells me otherwise. I just think the pass rush is the great equalizer for South Carolina. Like, obviously, you go in, you have 5 or 6 sacks. It's going to be an ugly game, but I think Clemson gets this done at home, and I do think they backdoor their way into like a 12 seed into the playoffs.
Man, I was really hoping with that pick I could get y'all to split, and maybe it's this next one that will finally get y'all to split. All right, this is the second to last one. Prime time. It's back. Hate Week has the Lone Star Classic, I think is what it's called. Texas at Texas A&M in Kyle Field. Texas is a 6-point favorite. Our guest is first this time.
Something is telling me that the fellas at Texas A&M get it done this week. I don't know if I feel like it's because maybe they were looking ahead on Auburn, that they were already working on some Texas stuff. Aggie Land's a tough place to play. Something is telling me, whether it's Ewers not being healthy on that ankle, or maybe Texas has just played that easy of a schedule, in my opinion. I'm rolling with the Aggies this weekend.
I pick wrong every single time on Texas A&M. That is the one team in America I cannot read. I don't want to play Texas, so I'm going to pick Texas, and I will gladly tell Kobe he's the champion and the greatest picker of all time if Texas A&M wins, because I would be extremely happy. But I'm just going to go Texas because I'm hoping I'm jinxing the shit out of them.
Okay, so we finally got a split here. I've been waiting for a split, and this next game may split you. Maybe not. We got to throw the Iron Bowl in. It is Hate Week. I got to throw it in. I like how all these are really competitive games. I don't know if this is going to produce the split, considering the comments some Auburn folks have made, but Kobe got the first one on the last one. So, Dan, you will open it up here. What do you say?
Where's this game at?
This game is at Bryant-Denny, and Alabama's 11.5-point favorite.
Yeah, Alabama's going to absolutely murder them. It's going to be a bloodbath. I think it's going to be ugly as hell. And I had a point that I was going to make, and I can't remember what it was. So I'll let Kobe give his answer. I think Alabama's going to kill him. And maybe I'll remember what I was going to say.
Yeah, I think, fact check me if I'm wrong on this, either one of y'all. Outside of his first year of coaching at Alabama, did Nick Saban ever lose back-to-back weeks ever? Maybe an SEC championship and a Sugar Bowl, I think, maybe one year. But the man always seemed to get it done in the regular season. I think if you can't get hyped up for this game, a year that, people are really saying, kind of questioning your coach, they're questioning your quarterback, they're in a similar boat of like, hey, this Jalen Milroe guy, he was supposed to be the truth. Hey, this Kalen DeBoer guy, he played a national championship, coached in a national championship last year. What's going on? I think Alabama shows up and has something to prove. I think they get it done. I think they get it done big. I'd say they cover the spread and try to, if they can, they're gonna hang 50. I'm not saying they can, but I mean it won't be for a lack of trying.
And we talk about Hate Week. There is no rivalry in America where the hate is so strong. There are people in jail right now for murdering their next door neighbors because Alabama lost a football game or Alabama didn't play good. There was a story a couple years ago where the guy walked across the street in his trailer park and had a 12 gauge in his hands. The guy answers the door in his Auburn shirt and he put a bullet in his head. I mean, come on. You're talking about hate week. And we hate the nerds down the road, but we ain't killing anybody. So that's hate week.
I thought we were about to get a Bama Dan right there.
No.
But I thought we were close. But I did want to show this because I have them all tracked. This is Dan's picks through the year. I haven't updated it yet for this week, but this is how Dan's faring on the misses. I think he's been
he's had a little miss.
Yeah, he's had a little bit of misfortune on some teams.
Yeah, well,
in some close games though. In some close games, like A&M over South Carolina, respectable miss. Vanderbilt over South Carolina, respectable miss. LSU Alabama made it not so respectable. Nebraska over USC. I'm surprised you missed on this one. I thought USC was going to lose. I wouldn't have picked against you here. Again, probably wouldn't have picked against you here. Definitely wouldn't have picked against you here. What of these hits, Dan, are you most proud of?
Picked against him on both of those last week.
That's how it's catching me. And he gets the bonus points and shit. I still pick more games right. Anyway, which hit am I proud of?
Yeah.
Washington over USC. You laughed at me when I said that.
Koby, of the misses, which one has you just like, damn, Dan, what are you doing?
Knowing what I know now, I mean, obviously the LSU over Alabama is the way that game went is just unbelievable. The one that I would like a year ago would have laughed at would be Vanderbilt over South Carolina. Like the fact that I would have probably believed that Vanderbilt had a really good chance in that this year. Like if we look back at our picks, I probably picked the same thing. I
should have known better.
Beamer ball has surprised me this year, though. I mean, I have been thoroughly surprised that it has all kind of come together for them. Obviously, they've dodged some big competition or lost to the big competition this year, but they got a chance to prove it. I mean, I think 9-3 South Carolina. We're recording this on Monday. The official rankings haven't come out yet. In my opinion, South Carolina is hot at the right time. That Ole Miss and Alabama are not. Do not be shocked if South Carolina is ranked ahead of both of them tomorrow night.
I have a quick question for both of you. I just need a quick answer here. Are either one of you surprised at how much those players in South Carolina love Shane Beamer?
No. I can expand on that real quick. Okay. I'll go first here. I think Beamer's a player's coach. He has a little bit of charisma to him with the players. He's young enough where he can relate to them maybe better than, say, other coaches. I don't think he's great in terms of, like, rival fans. I think, sometimes he can whine. He can come off as whiny, which I think maybe doesn't sit well with others, maybe, like, from our perspective. But I think with his players, I think it makes sense. How many special teams coaches are hated? Like, I feel like all the special teams coaches are just like really well liked. Probably some of the most well liked coaches on staff. And maybe Koby can speak to that more than I can.
Yeah, I think it's surprising, like you're saying. I think the thing that doesn't surprise me is his dad is one of the most loved college football coaches in history. You know what I mean? Like the tenure he had at Virginia Tech, the teams he had, I think he probably learned a lot of that from his dad. I would say he probably learned a lot in his time from Georgia in what maybe he, when you think about it, he learned under Kirby Smart, he learned under Lincoln Riley. I think he's kind of taken a combination of the two of like, here's what I didn't like under Kirby and the way he did things. Here's what I didn't like under Lincoln and the way he did things. And he's kind of tried to make it his own. I think a little bit of the gimmicky stuff is what I don't love. It's what I didn't love really about Dan Mullen either. It's like, oh, I know I'm not better than you, so I'm going to try to do, a fake punt here or go for it on fourth down. And then I'm going to kind of whine when things don't go my way after the game. When I've kind of set myself up for those failures. I think that's just a funny comparison. I think it was 2 years ago, they got blown out. We blew them out, and he goes, well, what do you want us to do? There's 5 stars all over their field. It's like, I want you to go out there and play a competitive football game. Yeah, I get that you're outmatched talent-wise, but, at the podium, I want you to tell me not, oh, well, they just have such a head start on us right now. And I think NIL has helped them. I mean, obviously, Dylan Stewart doesn't go to a place like South Carolina without a little, help.
Yeah, great points here. Before we wrap it up, Koby, I apologize. I meant to tell you to plug your stuff because you said our show. And for those not listening, I don't know if you've plugged it officially here, so I'm gonna give you the chance to do so now. Tell us where the people can tell us where people can find you.
Yeah, so I'm on Twitter at Koby Pyrz. It's KOBYPYRZ. And then I also am a co-host of the DGD podcast with Robert Keon and our friend Dan Kiley. Show up tonight, maybe a little special guest. Obviously, this is pre-recorded. I keep forgetting that. So you will have already seen it by the time, hopefully. But our friend Harrison is going to join us this evening for an episode of Keon's Court, where there are going to be some interesting people on trial. Give me a follow on Twitter, though. I follow back. Love to talk football, obviously. Played here at Georgia. My wife was a student athlete. We're still here in Athens. We still go to games. We're still around town. That's about it.
I do have him down in the scroll wheel here. You can go find him over there at Koby Pyrz over there on Twitter. Make sure to follow at Dan Kiley 3. Yeah, I'm gonna have to come tune in and find out who this Dan Kiley fella y'all have over there on the GG podcast. I feel like we have an imposter over there. Follow me at Harris Reno on Twitter. Yes, make sure you like and subscribe for more Dan rants. We haven't had a Dan rant in a little bit, but if the Falcons lose to the Raiders with Desmond Ridder, I'm sure Dan's gonna let us have one that weekend after. Subscribe to wherever you get your podcast. We appreciate you, Koby, for being here.
Koby has a question before you do your official wrap up. Go ahead, Koby.
It's going to send us out, gentlemen. Black Friday at home at night. Black jerseys, yes or no?
Dear God, let it happen. It's not going to happen, but that would be awesome. I didn't even consider that. It's Black Friday.
Yeah, Black Friday. Shit. And senior night was last week, not this week. Normally senior night would be
in red jerseys.
Exactly.
You bring up good points there.
Man, you're going to troll the shit out of me this week, aren't you?
I want the black jerseys to come out because I think the atmosphere would be insane. I think the blackout proves that even without the black jerseys, it can be insane. Anything with the word black, if you black it out, it's gonna be insane. But considering the equipment staff has already teased black, I'm like, it's not gonna happen. I feel like when they do it, they're not gonna advertise it or they're not gonna tease it. But hey, eventually you have to see something and you have to actually give it. So maybe it is the time. I'd love to see it, but as Dan said, I don't think it's going to happen.
So crazy fun fact for you real quick, then I'll let you wrap it up. If we do not wear them tomorrow night, this will be the first senior class under Georgia or under Kirby to have not worn black at least once.
Oh, wow.
Damn it, man. Wow. Somebody needs to send that to Kirby. Wow. I'm going to tweet it shit right now. I'm going to tweet it out, be like, Kirby, you realize you're about to have a whole senior class go through and not wear black? Shame on you, sir.
Yep. So we wore it my freshman year in 2016, and then they wore it again twice in 2020, and then you haven't worn it since 2024.
Well, damn.
There we go. 2020 was the black collar?
It was
two times with the bone collar. Yeah.
I was gonna give you crap, Dan, because you said "damn it, man." I thought you were gonna hit us with the "damn it, boy," but you just hit it there. So I feel redeemed now. Anyways, we'll be back next Wednesday. Live over here on the Dawg Talk Podcast. Yes, as we have alluded to, this is pre-recorded, which is why we haven't shown any of your comments. I apologize. We do kind of feed on the comments, so it is kind of weird not having it. But also it makes for, I guess, a better show for us in terms of getting our points out, I guess. We don't go down tangents. Or not a better show. It makes for a more, I guess, straightforward, linear show for us in terms of we don't get sidetracked. Because, man, there will be some comments that we can go on a 15-minute tangent about, for sure. So, Koby, we appreciate you for coming in here and joining us tonight. We will have to get you back for a live show. You absolutely killed it. Like I said, you're in rare air. You and Aaron Murray are the only former two Georgia football players to be on this show. So add that to your resume, sir, if you will. Dan, here's your cue.
Go Dogs.